Good morning, everybody, and early welcome to week number 5, module 5 of EDU 600. We are making tremendous progress, and I want to thank everybody for the effort that you're putting in. I have to say, the article captures that everybody sent me, I think I'm missing maybe one. This is the first class that I've ever taught of EDU 600 where everybody primary source documents in the first try. So I want to congratulate everybody on that. It's truly exceptional, and I want to thank you also. It certainly, when I see these and I take a look at your article capture sheets, and then I kind of look over the fence, I look at the actual research, and when I see that you've selected 6 great articles, it's wonderful to me. So thank you for that. If you have not received your grade or your comments, please let me know. Everybody should have received that by now. What we also have coming up, and let me just shift gears here for a second, and then I'll get into the week 5 materials. So we have the article captures. Everybody has done that. You should have gotten comments back on those. Qualitative critique is due on Sunday night at midnight. And once again, I've said it before, if you need a little extra time, please let me know. On Wednesday, which is August 2nd, your visual display of data assignment is due. If you have any questions on that, just once again, let me know. Really what that is you use one of the sources of data that I list. You go take a look at that, or you can use something else. There might be something that professionally you use. Really what I want you to do is take a look at the visual display of data and then write a paragraph about it. It doesn't have to be any more complicated. I would love for you to put the link to the data, and that's about it. Keep it as simple as possible. Then we have on August 6th, which is next Sunday, the experimental critique, and I'll get into that very briefly with this video. So that's where we're at. We're making tremendous progress. As you can see, the final research review, which is the final paper, is due, the August 18th. So, man, we're just plowing through this course. So keep up the great work. A lot of work in this course. I understand that. I've tried to simplify it as much as possible. So let me go back. I'll shift screens here. I'll go back to the screen that I was at. Sorry, this doesn't really tie with the course, but I was just feeling like, I'm a big J.R. Tolkien fan, and this is one of my favorite sayings. So take it for what it's worth. Okay, to get us going, we're doing experimental research this week. And I might have mentioned earlier on the course that we're going to have two group assignments or 2 group discussion forums. I decided against it for this week. This will be, there's only going to be the one group project or group discussion forum that you did already. And in this week, it's just going to be individual study on your own. So this week, you're taking a look at the video. That's great. The experimental critique is due on August 6th. So what is experimental research? I think this is a type of research that people are somewhat familiar with, in that, let's keep it on a simple term. You have 2 groups, and it could be 2 groups. One group was vaccinated for COVID and the other one was not. And you do experiments. You see which group got more, or you subject them to the COVID virus, and you're seeing, are there any differences between the group that got the vaccine and those that did not, and or was the severity of COVID worse for the people that did not get vaccinated versus the group that did. That, in simplistic terms, is what experimental research is doing. A lot of times it's done with the control group and then the treatment group. A lot of information on that. It seeks to determine the relationship between the 2 variables, the dependent and independent variable. And then in chapter 9, I'd say don't spend a lot of time on this, but the factorial designs is in chapter 9. So what do I have? You're watching the introductory video. We have a great video by Jeff Beaudry on experimental research and the significant testing. Another one, experimental designs. Read and do. So here's the nuts and the bolts. Read chapters 8 and 9, then identify 2 to 3 quotes or concepts from each chapter that help you understand the concepts about experimental research. And I say write them out, and I'll get to that. Read, there's a brief here, which it's another way of understanding experimental research. Read the experimental research article. Now, this is the article that you are going to write your critique on. It is not a group critique, it is your particular critique. So this is the article. I'd like you to read this article, and I'll get into a little more detail about the assignment, and I'll also mention an optional Zoom meeting that we have coming up it's August 2nd, Wednesday at 6:30 at night, where I'll talk about this and any other thing in more detail. So I'd like you to read this article, give your ideas some legs. It's please read the entire code, but focus in on, there's 4 experiments in here. Concentrate on either the first one or the second one. And the significance of that, I'll talk about in a minute. So here's the article. I also put in an additional article about experimental research. This one's pretty simple. I think it's pretty simple to understand. It has to do with teaching methods, and one group is taught, just say, in a conventional way, and the other group they use all kind of audiovisual type techniques. And really what the research was looking at is, in the group that were subjected, or the researchers used audio-visual techniques, was the learning more significant? And really, the results were, in this case, underwhelming. There was no statistical significance of the results. But if you just have a little extra time, you want to read a very simple study, take a look at this. Now, I just threw this in here because with experimental research, it seems like 2 of the most common tests that are used are the t-test, and when we're talking statistical significance, we're talking p-values. So t-test, really, in simplistic terms, it's comparing the means of the 2 groups. So first of all, is there a difference in Group A in the means of, just say, their test scores, and in Group B, the means of their test scores? P-value. This you will see with quantitative analysis. Not all of the tests result in the p-value, but a lot of times in the research, the quantitative research, you will find a p-value. And right here, a p-value, putting it in very simplistic terms, a p-value that is less than or smaller than 0.05, and that's the number that often is used, or most times it is, it means that, sorry about that. Let me just stop sorry for that disruption. I hit something and I lost something. So the p-value, if the number is smaller than 0.05, it means the tests are statistically significant. And that's the actual term that I'd love for you to use when you see the p-value in your final critique, or even in this week. I'd like you to use either, just say you have a p-value that is 2.0. It means the tests were not statistically significant. But if you have something that is 0.000627, it means statistical significance. We'll leave it at that for right now. Discussion forums. This is really, read the chapters, and then if you want, you can post 2 or 3 concepts, ideas, quotes, or questions that you have about experimental research. Strictly optional on your part. You do not have to do it. But if you do post questions there, I will try my best to answer those questions. But also, leading right into it, I'll hold an optional Zoom meeting this week, this Wednesday, August 2nd, 6:30 p.m. And here's the link for the meeting. Show up if you can. If you can't show up, that is fine. I will record it and post it the next day. So that's where we're at with this. This is part 1. Let me just update this so I make sure I have it. As you can see down at the bottom of the page, well, it's making me dizzy. You have the optional Zoom meeting. So let me come back here. We have, that was part 1, part 2. Part 2 really has to do with single subject research and factorial designs, which are the 2 chapters. The week starts here. You're looking at the same video. Little simplistic terms, experimental research critique, which is due next Sunday by midnight. Once again, if you need a little more time, please let me know. So, it's the same format that you are just completing your qualitative critique, which is due tomorrow evening by midnight, but if you need more time, let me know. There are 4 experiments in this particular article, Effective Walking on Creative Thinking. In that paper, I'd like you to only focus in on 1. You do not have to focus in on all 4 of the experiments. You can do, if you want, you can do 1, you could do 2. It's really up to you, whichever one makes more sense. If you have questions about this, let me know. But once again, it's the same length. I'd love to see a cover page, a references page. In the references, you will have the article that you are critiquing and any other additional references that you might have. It could be Jeff Beaudry's our textbook. It could be something else. It could be another reference. But I'd like you to list the references that you use for that. There's some information. There's a guidelines here about writing it. These are the headings I'd like you to use. Exemplars. Use APA formatting, and once again, this is when it is due. So let me come down here. Have a whole bunch of information. I know there's a lot this week. You can always take a look at any one of these tests in video form. All of them are excellent. You can speed it up. You don't have to watch all of these. I add these only as a way for the visual audio learners that this may be easier to understand than reading the textbook. So here's the critique, the information we have here, the guidelines, and I'm going to just click on this. So here's once again, the information, and I came in here as a way to show you that we have the guidelines and we have an exemplar. So that is it. And one thing I'd like to highlight, I will talk about if there's any questions that you have concerning the actual paper, concerning the quantitative critique, the experimental critique. It's one and the same because experimental research is quantitative. So that is it for me. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. If you're having problems and you don't feel like you can wait until our Zoom meeting coming up on Wednesday, shoot me an email. I have time on Monday and Tuesday. Also, I have some time on Wednesday morning that if you'd like to meet with me on one-on-one in a Zoom meeting or over a call, that is fine. So that is far too much for me, as always. But once again, there's a lot of information this week. There's a lot of information, and the pace in a 7-week class is very intense. So I understand that, and I've tried to simplify the materials, but there's just a lot. So let me know if I can help. I hope you have a chance to enjoy the hot and summer weather today. And I look forward to seeing your critiques. I know a few people have already sent them in and submitted those. You have till tomorrow evening, but once again, if you need a little more time, just let me know. Okay, bye everybody.